All right, well, joining us now is University of Adelaide law professor Dr. Joanna Howe to discuss concerns over the issue of babies born alive during late-term terminations. And I've got to warn you, some viewers may find the content in this segment a little distressing. Joanna Howe, thank you so much for joining us again here on the program. Tell us a bit more about where things are up to over this controversy over babies born alive and some of the shocking things we've been hearing discussed in Parliament recently.
What we know is that it's one baby a week who is born alive and left to die without a legal right to care in certain Australian states. So in Victoria and Queensland, there's no legislative protection for babies born alive after an abortion. That's also the case in the Northern Territory, WA and Tasmania. Only New South Wales and South Australia, where I'm from, have a positive legal duty that if a child is born alive after an abortion, they're to be treated no differently to any other newborn Australian child. And what we now know, because of the midwives that are coming forward to blow the whistle on what's going on, is that this means that these little newborns are being deliberately induced alive as a method of abortion, and we don't even do this to animals, and they're being deliberately induced alive and then left to die on metal kidney dishes, or as Louise Adset said, little witches' hats, which are urine dishes. So these little babies are being placed in these dishes, then put in the dirty pan room, door shut, and left to die. It's just an absolute national disgrace. And in the federal parliament, 32 senators voted against giving these babies a right to medical care. And currently in the Queensland Parliament, Robbie Katter's bill is languishing because Stephen Miles is playing politics. He doesn't want to vote on this before the Queensland election.
Rita.
Joanna, some of the testimony we heard, I listened to one midwife talk about this little baby born alive, breathing for 5 hours, clinging on to life for 5 hours, but not having any assistance, and eventually dying. I mean, to me, it just sounds obscene that could happen anywhere. Tell me about why people are voting against this, because this bill isn't going to curb any abortion rights. All it's saying is if an abortion is botched or for any reason a child is born alive during a late-term abortion, that child gets some medical help. Tell me the reasons why MPs are voting against this, including a number of Liberal MPs.
The only reason they're voting against this is because they want to cover up for the abortion industry. So we know the abortion industry is extremely powerful, that they give money to the Greens, they give money to Labor, and we don't know which Liberal MPs get money from the abortion industry. We know that Greens MP Larissa Waters is on the board of Children by Choice, one of the main abortion lobbyists in the country. And the abortion industry wants to cover this up. What astounds me is the fact that Dr. Alicia Broome, a chief abortionist in this country, stood up in the parliament and said, we do this on purpose. We deliberately induce these babies alive because that's the method of abortion. I had always thought, I think all of us had thought, this is an unintended consequence of abortion up to birth. And in reality, what we now know is these aren't failed abortions. This is a deliberate strategy, a cheap, easier, quicker strategy to kill babies. So they induce them alive, they leave them to die. Now, this was outlawed for baby calves in Australia in 2022. This was banned. We don't even do this to baby cows, yet we do it to human babies. And Maria Kovacic, who's a senator from the Liberal Party, she got up 2 weeks ago in the Australian Senate and she justified this practice. She said this was about women's right to abortion. It has nothing to do with that because the abortion has already happened, and all we're talking about, Rita, is humane treatment for these little newborn babies who are left gasping for air, who are wondering what the heck is going on, because they've gone from the place where they were safest in their mother's womb. They could respond to their mother's voice. They respond to light and sound at this gestation. These are babies at 21 weeks who are being left on metal kidney dishes to die. And Senator Maria Kovacic had the gall to stand up in the parliament as a member of the Liberal Party and justify this barbaric practice. I have launched a petition to dump her from the Liberal Party because this type of person should not exist in our federal parliament, and especially not in the Liberal Party.
Shocking stuff, James McPherson.
Yeah, Senator Ralph Babet asked the Senate simply to agree that babies born alive should have a right to care and comfort, and unbelievably, 4 Liberal senators voted against it. You mentioned Maria Kovacic. She complained she hadn't had enough time to consider whether or not babies born alive should receive care. That, to me, was the most shocking part of her speech.
Absolutely, James, because this was before the Senate since 2022. Senator Matt Canavan, Senator Alex Antic, Senator Ralph Babet had a private member's bill before the Senate. So for over 18 months, the Human Rights Children Born Alive Protection Bill. This bill gives a right to equal protection for any child born in Australia. So we already have that protection in New South Wales and South Australia. This is extending it across the country. We had a Senate inquiry in June 2023. Senator Maria Kovacic gets paid over $230,000 a year to represent us in the Australian Senate. She needs to do her job. It was an absolute disgrace for her to say, we haven't had enough time to look at this. And essentially it was her and the other 3 Liberals, Jane Hume, Simon Birmingham, Andrew Bragg, all 4 of them siding with the abortion industry, who instead of being like the dairy industry who owned up to the appalling treatment of little baby calves, these 4 Liberals, the Greens and Labor, are siding with the abortion industry and covering up the plight of these very vulnerable Australian newborn babies.
Dr. Joanna Howe, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate your keeping us informed and updated about this disturbing issue. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And who knows, maybe one day we'll get Maria Kovacic here on the program.